Hello, everyone. It is December 6th, 2015, Sunday. Uh, it seems apparent that there's a lot of people that just don't understand. They're either too busy or they simply don't care enough to really know what's going on in this country. So, I'm just going to let some of the videos on YouTube do some of the talking for me. And this one right here, this is the presidential speech from the Oval Office. Um, I'm going to do some commentary on this one, and then I want to show you guys a video from the NRA. Because, I mean, let's face it, background checks don't work. They only provide a false sense of security. I really shouldn't have to tell anybody that. It's pretty obvious. But let's watch the video, and I'm going to do some commentary along the way. And I'm going to try and get some people caught up on what they probably don't really realize what's going on here.
Good evening. On Wednesday, 14 Americans were killed as they came together to celebrate the holidays. They were taken from family and friends who loved them deeply. They were white and black, Latino and Asian, immigrants and American-born, moms and dads, daughters and sons.
All right, let's pause it right there. Okay, so the very first thing that Obama comes out and says that we've been strucken with mass shootings from people from all kinds of walks of life, backgrounds, from people who were born here and people who came here by various different means. That right there should eliminate a desire for a background check to get firearms. In case you did not catch that. Yeah. That right there, what's the point in doing background checks? There's a black market whenever you make something illegal. Just because one person can get their hands on it, that doesn't mean that another person can't get, if there's a single person who cannot get their hands on something because of a form of regulation or a background check, that makes them ineligible according to this flawed man-made system, there's going to be a black market for it. And if you can find somebody who sells crack, then you can find a way to tap into the black market.
Each of them served their fellow citizens. All of them were part of our American family. Tonight I want to talk with you about this tragedy, the broader threat of terrorism, and how we can keep our country safe.
Okay, let's pause right there. How we can keep this country safe? Well, America has been fooling around in other countries. Why are we doing that? What is the point? What is to be gained by putting our nose in other people's business? There's always been migrants trying to come into the U.S. because they're not happy with their current situation. Why are we not just leaving other countries alone and letting them do whatever it is that they think that they need to be doing according to their customs? We have systems set in place here to protect ourselves in case there's a missile attack. There's people literally watching the radars 24/7. They're constantly switching out shifts. Okay, if there's a missile coming at us, we're going to know about it. We have the best technology aside from China to pick up, missiles and whatnot in mid-flight. And then we have our people who can then, go shoot down the missile. So it's like, why are we putting our nose in other people's business in the first place? Okay, if you attack another country, you're basically going to draw attention to us.
The FBI is still gathering the facts about what happened in San Bernardino, but here's what we know. The victims were brutally murdered and injured by one of their co-workers and his wife. So far, we have no evidence that the killers were directed by a terrorist organization overseas or that they were part of a broader conspiracy here at home. But it is clear that the two of them had gone down the dark path of radicalization, embracing a perverted interpretation of Islam that calls for war against America and the West.
All right, let's pause it right there. Why did you open the gates and let that many Syrian migrants into the country and into France and into the UK. What the fuck is wrong with you? We have an unemployment rate that is ridiculous. We have a deficit that is ridiculous. There are shelters all over the country filled with Americans who are fully capable of working. Why are we letting anybody into this country? Dumbass.
They had stockpiled assault weapons, ammunition, and pipe bombs. So this was an act of terrorism designed to kill innocent people. Our nation has been at war with terrorists since Al-Qaeda killed nearly 3,000 Americans on 9/11. In the process, we've hardened our defenses, from airports to financial centers to other critical infrastructure. Intelligence and law enforcement agencies have disrupted countless plots here and overseas and worked around the clock to keep us safe. Our military and counterterrorism.
Yeah, you keep fucking shit up, Obama. Back off.
Professionals have relentlessly pursued terrorist networks overseas, disrupting safe havens in several different countries, killing Osama bin Laden, and decimating Al-Qaeda's leadership. Over the last few years, however, the terrorist threat has evolved into a new phase.
You keep attacking the terrorists in other countries. Of course it's going to evolve. Who the hell do you think you are? You're just a man. You're not a god. Everything that you do, there's going to be a ripple effect that comes from your decisions and the decisions of others. Of course it evolves.
As we've become better at preventing complex, multifaceted attacks like 9/11, terrorists turn to less complicated acts of violence like the mass shootings that are all too common in our society.
They're common because of you and because of Hillary. Because you keep pushing gun control. The fact that we have any type of gun laws in this country, they are all a direct contradiction of the Second Amendment. The word infringe means to undermine or to limit. So magazine capacity limits, any type of background check, anything of that sort is an infringement on our Second Amendment rights. So when gun control started to become a thing in this country, that is when things started to go tits up. This was always going to happen when gun control became a thing in this country. The answer to our problem is to not control guns at all and allow Americans to buy them freely. If you have a driver's license or if you have a state ID, then you should be able to buy a gun, period. End of discussion. It doesn't matter what history you have. It doesn't matter where you come from. It shouldn't matter if you have a felony. It shouldn't matter if you have a misdemeanor. It shouldn't matter if you have a DV. If you're an American citizen, you are entitled to your Second Amendment right. It doesn't matter if some flawed, broken human says that you're bipolar or says that you have, all kinds of issues. Stop controlling the guns. Back off. And Americans will be safe. And if you're too stupid to understand why that is, then, you probably shouldn't be you really shouldn't be the president, that's for sure. Okay, but you really shouldn't have really any position of responsibility if you don't understand why it works to stop controlling guns and just let people buy them and let them open carrying them.
It is this type of attack that we saw at Fort Hood in 2009, in Chattanooga earlier this year, and now in San Bernardino. And as groups like ISIL grew stronger amidst the chaos of war in Iraq and then Syria, and as the internet erases the distance between countries, we see growing efforts by terrorists to poison the minds of people like the Boston Marathon bombers and the San Bernardino killers. For 7 years, I have confronted this evolving threat each and every morning in my intelligence briefing. And since the day I took this office, I have authorized U.S. forces to take out terrorists abroad precisely because I know how real the danger is. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no greater responsibility than the security of the American people. As a father to two young daughters who are the most precious part of my life, I know that we see ourselves with friends and co-workers at a holiday party like the one in San Bernardino. I know we see our kids in the faces of the young people killed in Paris. And I know that after so much war, many Americans are asking whether we are confronted by a cancer that has no immediate cure. Well, here's what I want you to know. The threat from terrorism is real, but we will overcome it. We will
Not if you keep controlling guns.
destroy ISIL and any other organization that tries to harm us. Our success won't depend on tough talk, or abandoning our values, or giving in to fear. That's what groups like ISIL are hoping for. Instead, we will prevail by being strong and smart, resilient and relentless, and by drawing upon every aspect of American power. Here's how.
We're not strong when you have background checks. We're not strong when you're trying to bring in, large amounts of random people. Okay, when we have a ton of people in this country that we still need help. People who were born here.
First, our military will continue to hunt down terrorist plotters in any country where it is necessary. In Iraq and Syria.
If you finally succeed in exterminating the current threat, another one will pop back up again.
Airstrikes are taking out ISIL leaders, heavy weapons, oil tankers, infrastructure. And since the attacks in Paris, our closest allies, including France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, have ramped up their contributions to our military campaign, which will help us accelerate our effort to destroy ISIL. Second, we will continue to provide training and equipment to tens of thousands of Iraqi and Syrian forces fighting ISIL on the ground so that we take away their safe havens. In both countries, we're deploying special operations forces who can accelerate that offensive. We've stepped up this effort since the attacks in Paris, and will continue to invest more in approaches that are working on the ground. Third, we're working with friends and allies to stop ISIL's operations, to disrupt plots, cut off their financing, and prevent them from recruiting more fighters. Since the attacks in Paris, we've surged intelligence sharing with our European allies. We're working with Turkey to seal its border with Syria. And we are cooperating with Muslim-majority countries and with our Muslim communities here at home to counter the vicious ideology that ISIL promotes online.
First of all, there's always going to be ignorant people in this country, and there's always going to be ignorant people around the world. So, how are you going to tackle the common misconception again, Obama? I mean, I'm just curious, because, ignorance is not something that can be cured. Okay, if people choose to be ignorant, I mean, it's forever.
Fourth, with American leadership, the international community has begun to establish a process and timeline to pursue ceasefires and a political resolution to the Syrian war. Doing so...
Really? Political resolution? Are you kidding me? Really? Come on. Seriously?
...will allow the Syrian people and every country, including our allies, but also countries like Russia, to focus on the common goal of destroying ISIL, a group that threatens us all. This is our strategy to destroy ISIL. It is designed and supported by our military commanders and counterterrorism experts, together with 65 countries that have joined an American-led coalition. And we constantly examine our strategy to determine when additional steps are needed to get the job done. That's why I've ordered the Departments of State and Homeland...
Okay, see this right here? You notice how he admits that they're working with all of these other countries to try and tackle this problem, and yet they are... himself and Hillary have both made it perfectly clear that they want to push for more strict gun control laws. So if it's that serious that you have to collaborate with other countries, why not remove all of the gun control laws that are currently in place and just allow Americans to arm themselves there's going to be brothers who will buy guns for brothers who cannot buy their guns legally right now in this country just because of what's going on. So really, these gun control laws are pointless and useless. So, I mean, Jesus.
Security to review the visa waiver program under which the female terrorist in San Bernardino originally came to this country. And that's why I will urge high-tech and law enforcement leaders to make it harder for terrorists to use technology to escape from justice.
Well, Obama, since you're human and since you cannot control anything completely, why control it in the first place? I feel like a broken record here. Why not just remove the gun control laws?
Now, here at home, we have to work together to address the challenge.
Really? We have to work together? No, we need to stop being lazy, and we need to take responsibility for our own freedom.
There are several steps that Congress should take right away. To begin with, Congress should act to make sure no one on a no-fly list is able to buy a gun.
Okay, that right there, the no-fly list, there was a United States congressman on the no-fly list. They don't have to try anybody in a court of law and find them guilty to put them on the no-fly list. In addition to that, it's passive-aggressive in the sense that you don't really know that you're on the no-fly list until you try and fly. So the government can randomly put whoever they want on this no-fly list without any restrictions. So in a minute here, you're going to hear Obama say that there shouldn't be any argument for why people who are on the no-fly list shouldn't be able to buy a gun. Technically, I'm on the no-fly list because I'm not allowed to leave the country until I'm 35. I can fly within the country, but I'm not allowed to leave or get a passport until I'm 35. So technically, I'm on the no-fly list. Now, watch what Obama says.
What could possibly be the argument for allowing a terrorist suspect to buy a semi-automatic weapon?
See, he's a dumbass. He is completely, utterly insane, ignorant in every possible way. That right there is living proof that Obama has completely lost his mind.
This is a matter of national security. We also need to make it harder for people to buy powerful assault weapons, like the ones
Second Amendment, dude. Second Amendment.
that were used in San Bernardino.
Two physical objects cannot occupy the same space. Basically what that means is the choices that some other person made has nothing to do with me. Because two physical objects cannot occupy the same space. This, of course, is common sense. But the president doesn't have any.
I know there are some who reject any gun safety measures.
Duh.
But the fact is that our intelligence and law enforcement agencies, no matter how effective they are, cannot identify every would-be mass shooter.
Neither can a background check or any other form of security that your dumbass is trying to put in place.
Whether that individual is motivated by ISIL or some other hateful ideology.
A man's past cannot help you determine what they're going to do in the future. That is precisely why we don't want background checks. Not even for employment. What the fuck is wrong with you? God damn it, there's a lot of stupid people in this country.
What we can do, and must do, is make it harder for them to kill.
How are you going to do that? Leave the guns alone.
Next, we should put in place stronger screening for those who come to America without a visa, so that we can take a hard look at whether they've traveled to war zones.
Okay, you want to do that? That's fine. First, let's employ every other American who's in a homeless shelter or is unemployed. Let's first tackle the problem that we have in this country before we start letting people in from other countries.
And we're working with members of both parties in Congress to do exactly that.
Whatever.
Finally, if Congress believes, as I do, that we are at war with ISIL, it should go ahead and vote to authorize the continued use of military force against these terrorists.
Fuck You, Obama, because of the choices that you and your administration has made, we now have terrorists in this country. So no, I will not vote to have a militarized state in this country. You dumbass. You did this, you fix it.
For over a year, I have ordered our military to take thousands of airstrikes against ISIL targets. I think it's time for Congress to vote to demonstrate that the American people are united and committed to this fight.
United and committed? Okay, watch after this video. I'm going to show you an NRA video. And I'm going to show you just how committed Obama is to keeping Americans safe here on our soil.
My fellow Americans, these are the steps that we can take together to defeat the terrorist threat. Let me now say a word about what we
You and Hillary are terrorists.
should not do. We should not be drawn once more into a long and costly ground war in Iraq or Syria. That's what groups like ISIL want.
And yet you did it. Just like Bush did it. Fucker.
They know they can't defeat us on the battlefield. ISIL fighters were part of...
How arrogant is that? They know they cannot defeat us on the battlefield. They somehow managed to get their hands on a bunch of freaking Hondas, which they managed to deck out and turn them into armored vehicles. You know what, Obama? Fuck you.
The insurgency that we faced in Iraq. But they also know that if we occupy foreign lands, they can maintain insurgencies for years, killing thousands of our troops, draining our resources, and using our presence to draw new recruits.
You made it possible for that to happen.
The strategy that we are using now, airstrikes, special forces, and working with local forces who are fighting to regain control of their own country, that is how we'll achieve a more sustainable.
Right now, we don't have control over the U.S.
victory. And it won't require us sending a new generation of Americans overseas to fight and die for another decade on foreign soil. Here's what else we cannot do. We cannot turn against one another by letting this fight be defeated.
We are turned against one another. We have ignorant people in this country who actually support background checks. We are already turned against each other. Our nation's founding fathers knew exactly what could happen. That's why we have the Constitution, among other things.
Defined as a war between America and Islam. That, too, is what groups like ISIL want. ISIL does not speak for Islam. They are thugs and killers.
Yeah, Obama, Christianity has fake Christians, too, and then we have real Christians. You know, I mean, every organization has imposters. Duh. Obviously. Go figure.
Part of a cult of death. And they account for a tiny fraction of more than 1 billion Muslims around the world, including millions of patriotic Muslim Americans who reject their hateful ideology. Moreover, the vast majority of terrorist victims around the world are Muslim.
Alright, you know what? Watch this. I'm going to show you something from the NRA, the National Rifle Association. A lot of people on mainstream media are actually saying that the NRA is the problem here. They're saying that they're the main issue. I beg to differ, and I'm about to show you why. This video that I'm going to show you, I verified this information. You're about to see the vice president of the NRA make quite a dramatic video here. I think it's in this. Let's see if we can find it. I've got a lot of cool gun videos that I really like in here, so I gotta find it. Oh yeah, that's another one I should probably show you too. Here we are. Alright, watch this carefully.
Nothing illustrates America's breakdown like the way the president's hometown celebrates its holidays. Memorial Day, 12 dead, 56 wounded. The 4th of July, 10 dead, 53 wounded. Labor Day, 9 dead, 46 wounded. This kind of third world carnage has become absolutely normal. If the president held a press conference every time multiple people were murdered by criminal gangbangers with illegal guns in Chicago, we'd hear from him almost every day. Instead, he says nothing. And the untold secret in Washington is that he has all the laws he needs to stop the bloodshed now.
Did you hear that?
Under the existing federal gun laws, he could take every felon with a gun, drug dealer with a gun, and criminal gangbanger with a gun off the streets tomorrow and lock them up for 5 years or more. But he won't do it. His Justice Department won't do it. And the media never ask why. So convicted gangbangers carry illegal guns because they fear rival gangs more than they fear being prosecuted for a gun charge.
In case you did not know this, all of the mainstream media, every single bit of it, is owned by 6 people in the country. 6 people own all of the mainstream media. And keep in mind, just like I said before, felons should be allowed to get a gun. Just because you made a mistake, just because you did something really, really bad, that doesn't mean that you're going to be a terrible person forever. And when you put restrictions on a felon, you're basically telling them that they have no way out and you might as well just continue to be a criminal. So whenever humans try to control things, they actually fuck it up more. This is why I have a problem with arrogance in this country. Thank God for my humility, because I could still sleep at night.
Every police officer on the streets in cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and Detroit knows what it's like to get called to a murder scene, knowing full well who did it, because the killer was in the back of their car yesterday or last week. Thugs like Darius Brown, who was supposed to be serving a 10-year sentence for second-degree felony robbery, but got let off with 5 years probation. So he was free to roam the streets and kill a 9-year-old girl while she was doing her homework. If you want to stop violent crime, and I know you do, take violent criminals off the street. Prosecute them under the current federal gun laws and make sure they don't get to their next crime scene. That's the way to...
You gotta wonder why these current laws that are already in place are not being enforced to begin with. You know, I mean, stuff like that, you gotta be questioning those types of, those types of things. You know, because, I mean, those types of questions could lead to some very dark and interesting possibilities, but you know, if you ignore it, then you're not doing yourself any good. So I'm not saying jump to conclusions, I'm not saying go crazy, but you gotta ask yourself, why are the current laws not being enforced? Even though I don't support them, but you gotta wonder.
Save lives. If the president held a press conference tomorrow morning and directed every federal jurisdiction to round up every felon with a gun, drug dealer with a gun, and criminal gangbanger with a gun, law enforcement would have thousands of violent thugs in handcuffs and squad cars by sundown.
So we spend billions on war, but we don't want to spend billions on locking people up who knew full well, you know, even though, in my opinion, any type of American should be able to get a firearm, but they knew that they're not supposed to have a firearm, but they did it anyway. So we want to spend all of this money on war, but we don't want to spend money on locking these people up who knew full well that they're not allowed to have it, and they did it anyway. You know, questions like that you gotta ask.
Instead, he waits for a crime that fits his agenda and blames the NRA.
Boom. Boom shakalaka. And by the way, for those of you who think that this guy is a racist, he's defending a black girl in this video. He's defending Detroit, which is predominantly black.
Mr. President, we will not accept blame for your failure.
Goddamn right.
The NRA has demanded the strongest possible prosecution of the federal gun laws for over 20 years. Our repeated calls.
And you wonder why conspiracy theorists believe that the president is just a puppet for some much more sinister organization. You gotta look at the pattern of behavior.
Have been met by deafening silence from the Washington elites. President Obama and Hillary Clinton and other politicians used the carnage to campaign for more gun laws.
Boom. Are you watching?
They won't and don't enforce.
Boom, boom, and boom.
And the good, honest Americans living out in farm towns, in Nebraska or Oklahoma, or working 2 jobs in inner city Chicago or Baltimore. People who keep their heads down, raise their kids, and just try to do the right thing, they see through it all.
Yeah, we're not stupid. I mean, yeah, some of us are, but we're not stupid.
We've lived through the Clinton administration's utter lack of federal gun prosecutions, and the Obama administration is following suit while the country suffers. And we know that a second Clinton administration will just mean more of the same.
So don't vote for Hillary.
Americans have no tolerance for violent thugs, no tolerance for the politicians who enable them, and no tolerance for a media that devotes endless time to new gun laws, but won't even ask why we don't enforce the existing federal gun laws we already have.
Are you watching? Are you? Are you paying attention?
No organization has been louder, clearer, or more consistent on the urgent need to enforce the federal gun laws than the NRA. And in the face of mounting political and media pressure to demean, shame, and silence us, we will fight. If you have had enough of the dishonest debate, if you're sick of your guns for their failure, demand truth and justice. Stand and fight with the NRA.
Dramatic, provocative, direct. I love it. Now I'm going to show you one more video and then that's it. This guy is freaking awesome. Actually, I'm going to show you 2 more, but they're short. This is a news commentator for the NRA. He's a really great guy. I love his videos. And he's a black guy, and I'm not. But I love watching this guy. He's awesome. He's a NRA news commentator, and he's black. Great guy, actually. I like him a lot.
I hear more times than I care to that I don't own a gun because I'll probably get mad and shoot someone. In a perfect world, this line of thought should be met with a pat on the back of the individual who's able to recognize he has an impulse control problem and shouldn't own a gun. Except, almost every time I hear someone say this, it's at the conclusion of an argument about why they believe we should have more gun control. That's the problem with some anti-gunners and pro-gun control people. They like to try to impose their shortcomings, insecurities, and failures as human beings on people who don't share their less than favorable personality traits.
Okay, so see that right there? There's people who feel uncomfortable at a Starbucks watching somebody open carry an AR-15 or a handgun who is also at Starbucks drinking his coffee and minding his own business. You're the problem, not us. And there's a time and a place to be sensitive to somebody's sensitivities, but there's also a time and a place to be bold and tell somebody, go fuck yourself.
This whole I don't trust you with the gun because I don't trust myself with the gun is more prevalent than people realize. When someone is
That's basically what it is right there. But a lot of people are not. A lot of people are just fucking arrogant. And you're the problem.
recovering alcoholic, that doesn't mean we all stop drinking because you have some particular sensitivity to the activity.
Me personally, I think taking unnecessary risks with your body is fucking stupid. But this is America and people have the right to choose, right? I believe that.
It just means you're on permanent designated driver duty.
There you go. A lot of people need a designated driver. I mean, we would have a lot less deaths by cars, and then if it wasn't for the oil company being in bed with the government, we wouldn't, technically have a more greater reason to have background checks to drive a car than to own a fucking firearm. Because more people die in auto accidents than they do by guns.
But no, when one person feels they can't control themselves with a gun, they try to project that problem to the gun and everyone else. But you're the one with the problem.
Boom shakalaka, black man.
Not me. I and a whole host of other people don't have anger problems, or as I like to call it, the Kanye West anger management control syndrome. If you have the anger management control of a 15-year-old who just threw his Xbox One out of a window because LeBron James just lit his ass up with 68 points in NBA 2K14, then yeah, you probably shouldn't have a gun. But all jokes aside, let me be clear about something. If you feel like you can't trust yourself with a gun, you have the problem. Not me, not the gun, not the government, or the person who cut you off in traffic. You're the problem. So remember that the next time you start advocating for more gun control for other people because you can't control yourself whenever you feel some type of way.
Well, what do you know? There are some very, very intelligent black men among us. The more you know, because knowledge is power. Alright, this one is about a possible gun registration, why we don't need that shit. Watch this carefully. It's another black man, too.
Talk to anyone who is for more gun control, and they ask the same question. Okay, what?
Almost any emergency room has that black lady, that sassy black nurse. This guy right here is basically that sassy black man that tells it the way it is. I love it.
What's the big deal about a gun registration? Doesn't mean anything, so what's the problem? Why make a big deal about it? Tell me, would a gun registration have stopped what happened in Connecticut?
Nope.
What about Aurora?
Nope.
Virginia Tech?
Nope.
Columbine?
Nope.
Would a gun registration have stopped any of the 500 plus murders in Chicago?
No.
Ask yourself, in what possible way a gun registry could have stopped anything?
Nope.
You want to pass legislation that you know will do absolutely nothing to accomplish your goal?
Yeah, there's a lot of stupid people in this country that are dumb enough to waste their time and efforts on something that is completely pointless.
Did that make sense to you? Or does it just make you feel good? Make you all warm and fuzzy on it?
Again, we go back to the people who, feel uncomfortable in Starbucks. And so they don't want to see people open carrying. Oh, you poor thing. Oh.
Inside. You get to roll around in your 1,200 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets and sleep like a baby. Because all of those gun owners had to register their guns. If you know it's not going to do anything, why in the world would we do it? Makes you think, huh? The gun registry.
Again, you got to ask the right questions. You got to wonder. You can't just ignore the issue. You have to use your head. You have to think. Because there are a lot of signs of some serious problems in this country, and it doesn't take a genius to see them.
Registration proponents will argue it's harmless. But let's think about it like this. When you lease a car, you have to fill out a smorgasbord of information, like where you live, your name, your address, etc., etc. So that if you decide you don't want to pay that car note, they know where to go to come and do what? That's right, confiscate.
Boom. That right there is why we don't want a gun registration. It's pointless. It doesn't provide anything, just like background checks. It costs a lot of money to do it, and it's absolutely pointless. It does absolutely nothing for us except cause more grief. And what other use is there for it than to confiscate?
If they didn't
Again, a black man who calls it the way it is. I love it.
have that information, they would have no clue where to find you or that you even had the car. And that's why they have you register. We already know it won't save any lives, but what will it do?
That's right. A car registration, a gun registration is not going to stop some knucklehead from running somebody over on the road or shooting somebody in the head.
It will give the government your information, but they're not going to use it, right? Asking a government not to use the information collected from universal background checks is like asking an anti-gun.
The government is an institution of human beings who are flawed and unpredictable.
Not to use that firearm sitting on their counter when 3 guys are trying to kick in their door to kill them. If it's there, you're going to use it. Why else would you need it but out of necessity? But the government believes that you're so naive that they can claim, yeah, the information's there, but we'll never use it. Wink, wink.
So the government thinks that you're a dumbass? Are you? Again, you got to ask all the right questions.